call our meeting to order. We'll begin with a roll call, if you would, Jeffrey, please.
Absolutely. Michael Badger. Ron Bennett. Scott Biluski.
Here.
Ron Chapin. Darby Fishkin.
Here.
Katie Grimm, I see. Sharon Hansen, I know, is on. Mike Hoffert. Jim Lewicki.
Present.
Mr. O'Brien already announced himself. William Pauly. Jen Persico.
Here.
Jack Quinn. Gino Rusi. Mike Seaman. And John Dandies, obviously, is here.
Yeah.
We do not have a quorum.
How many are we short, Jeffrey?
I think 3. Excuse me, 2.
That's correct, too.
Of the people that did not respond, did any of them say they were going to?
Well, Ron Chapin said that he would be on. And Jack Quinn said that he would be on, Mike Seaman, and also Gino.
Can you text, we'll continue with the agenda, but if you could text them and see if they're going to join us, that would be great.
I absolutely will.
Thank you. So we'll dispense then with the approval of the minutes. And Tony, I'm assuming we can't do the resolutions at this point, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so let's go right to Tom's report, and both with regard to COVID and the ER trauma unit. Dr. Quattrochi, please.
Okay, I'm going to try to share my screen, so we'll see how this works, okay? So let's try to do it, make sure everybody can see it. Whoops.
Well done, Tom.
Yeah, we'll see. Hang on a second. I got to go backwards. Except it didn't share where I wanted it to. Hang on a second. I wanted to start at the beginning. Now let's try it. All right, there we go. Is that working?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
That's great.
Okay, great. So this is the new normal at ECMC. This is our executive team looking very excited and riveted over John Swiatowski's finance presentation. I promised them I wouldn't leave this up too long. They didn't know I was taking it. All right. With regard to COVID and the amount of patients that we've seen 185 patients. We have 22 COVID patients in-house today. 3 are vented, 4 PUIs. That's down a little bit. Pretty consistent with the end of last week, but down a little bit from the kind of 40 level where we've been for a while. So we've had 49 patients who've required ventilators. We've done antibody testing, and we had 82 positive of 1,688 tests that we've done. And the purchase department continues to do an unbelievable job of maintaining our PPE supplies. So kudos to that department. I'm going to have Dr. Murray talk a little bit about this very quickly. These are the clinical trials that we're involved with regard to our COVID patients. So Dr. Murray, why don't you just spend 2 minutes on exactly what this is here?
Yeah, the first one, sarilumab, is actually a randomized controlled trial. It's a monoclonal antibody to interleukin-6, which is a substance that the body releases in response to the virus, but that if it's produced in too great a quantity can cause problems. We treated this was started as a phase 2 trial. It's now progressed to a phase 3. We treated 10 patients, but we don't know who got the drug because it is a randomized study. And as you can see, it was mixed results, 4 deaths, 3 discharged home, and 3 still hospitalized. The interesting thing in the preliminary analysis was that the medication did not help people with severe disease who were not on a ventilator, but it did appear to be beneficial in people with critical illness on a ventilator. And now we're only enrolling patients who are in the critical phase of COVID infection. The second trial with convalescent plasma is not a randomized trial. It is a non-randomized trial that we're doing in collaboration with the Mayo Clinic. We've actually identified and referred 27 donors to donate their plasma, and we have treated 38 patients so far. Again, we have no control group to compare, but the mortality of 14% was encouraging, and people did seem to feel that some of these patients, particularly if they were treated early on in their course, benefited. The final, I'm just going to mention remdesivir. This is not a clinical trial. As you know, there was a recent result of the clinical trial run by the NIH, which suggested that this drug can shorten the time the patients spend in hospital. Again, we're trying to treat patients as early as possible. We've only actually got this drug about a week ago. There's only been 60,000 doses distributed in the United States, and we have received 8 courses. We've treated 1 patient so far with the drug, and we're actually using this in combination with the plasma. So that's where we are.
Question.
Go ahead, Dr. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Quick question, Dr. Murray. Can you tell the board a little bit about what our collaboration is with either Kaleida or the university on these trials, or is there any?
There is. In fact, well, with the exception of the last remdesivir, because that's being distributed to individual hospitals. But the opportunity to use the drug sirolimus came about because of a collaborative drug development group that's primarily run by the university and headed by Dr. Jean Morse in the School of Pharmacy. They've been testing drugs so far primarily in Africa, but because of their connections, they did get the opportunity to enlist in some of these trials. So there is a collaborative group. Patients are receiving medication at Roswell, Kaleida Health, and at ECMC. The convalescent plasma study is is organized through the same group in connection with the Mayo Clinic. So these are collaborative, basically system-wide studies that are being done.
Great. Thanks, Dr. Murray.
Any other questions regarding that? I should mention that we have discharged 114 patients, COVID patients, and we have unfortunately had 37 COVID deaths here at ECMC. I mentioned, I think before, Leapfrog A, congratulations again to the team, to Karen, Dr. Murray, Donna Jones, but it's really the entire team for achieving this. Again, there's not many public safety net hospitals who have a Leapfrog A, so it's really remarkable. And I just want to congratulate the team again, and just we'll be doing we can't do our typical celebrations, but we'll be doing those soon, hopefully after we get out of quarantine here. We also received an HHS grant for dental. It's a 5-year federal grant. We actually, Congressman Higgins just announced it today for $2.25 million. So this is a grant to take care of disabled individuals, and they do a just unbelievable job of taking care of those folks. And I know there's been some board members who've had family members that have been taken care of by the dental folks here, and they do a remarkable job with that population.
Are they reopened, Tom?
Mike, what's that question?
Has the dental clinic reopened?
So I believe they're taking care of emergencies, but go ahead, Andy. Andy, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say they've reopened and started to see patients. Most of our outpatient clinics are in the process of doing that now.
Patient experience. So we've continued with rounding. We have compassionate care rounding that the team has been doing, and we also have been putting photos of family and friends in patients' rooms to kind of keep that connectedness. I'll talk a little bit about some of our virtual ways we keep people connected in a little bit also. This is an effort that was done by the Behavioral Health Unit. Karen, you want to just talk about this real quick for a sec?
Sure. This is from our behavioral health patients. They were asked what they were doing to support themselves and their community during the pandemic, and also after the pandemic, what they were looking forward to. So this is actually one of their occupational therapy moments that they had, and it's on display in our lobby and throughout behavioral health.
So obviously, we continue to try to care for our behavioral health patients during this time. It's obviously a very trying time not to be able to have visitors and folks come see them. So I just got a text from Tony. I think we have quorum now. So just FYI, John.
That is correct.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to do, Tom, if you don't mind, is just pause your report for just a couple of minutes, and while we have a quorum, go through some of the actions that the board needs to take. Is that okay?
That's great.
Anyone have any objection to that?
None.
Okay, let's go right to the approval of the minutes. Unless there are deletions or corrections, we should consider the minutes approved as written. Any objections?
No.
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 Okay, so those are approved. Now we'll go right to the resolution on spaces and structures. We'll get to talk about the ER in a little bit, but Tom, if you would take us through that, please.
Yes, just so we have a listing of individuals who have given to the campaign, and we are, as you know, launching next week, and need to put signage, continue to put signage up. Some of that's been on pause because of businesses being shut down, but we're just following up by continuing to ask our donors to identify how they would like to be named for their spaces. So I just need a vote to approve those individuals with their naming rights.
Thank you, Tom. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved, Mike Seaman.
Mike Hoffer has made the motion. Is there a second, please?
Jen Persico, second.
Janet, seconds. Is there any further discussion, any questions? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. If you would please, all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 And, thank you. And opposed? That motion carries. And I'm not sure if Dr. Flynn is on the call, or if Dr. Murray or Dr. Grimm, or some combination of all of them with regard to the medical dental staff meeting.
Dr. Murray, you want to cover that?
Sorry, I was on mute. It's a presentation of the Credentials Committee minutes from this month, which were approved last week by the Medical Executive Committee. There were 10 new staff members proposed, 5 physicians, 1 in anesthesiology, 1 in internal medicine, 1 in surgery, and 2 teleradiologists. There were 3 physician assistants, 1 CRNA, and 1 clinical psychologist in rehab medicine. Probably the most notable addition is that Dr. Robert Pilley comes to us from Johns Hopkins, and he's actually going to be a professor of oncology and the chief of the Great Lakes Health Cancer Care medical side. And that's actually quite a prestigious recruit, both for Great Lakes Cancer Care and for the University at Buffalo. There were also 7 resignations, none of any major significance. And
thank you, Dr. Murray. Is there a motion to approve the med staff minutes?
Motion by Mike Seaman.
Mike Seaman made the motion. Is there a second, please?
Second by Jen Persico.
also by Jen. Any further discussion or questions for Dr. Murray? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
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 And the contrary? That motion is carried. Thank you, everybody. Tom, thanks for your forbearance here. Why don't we continue with your report?
All right, sounds good. So this is back into virtual care I was talking about earlier. We've actually had over 17,000 total virtual visits, which is pretty remarkable. I think patients are really going to get used to the virtual visits. I know in behavioral health specifically, Dr. Cummings was telling me we have almost 100% compliance rate in visits compared to a lot less before. So I think this is kind of a new reality and something that we're going to continue on. The team has done a great job, Keith and Rich and others, of launching this. So in-house, we have, I talked earlier about keeping people connected, patients connected. So patients can visit their loved ones using iPads. We have the specialists consulting, particularly with COVID patients through the iPad, so they don't have to go into the rooms. For COVID patients, the EDs doing specialty consults, and we have virtual, again, rounding that I talked about a little bit earlier. Also, Terrace View, residents can visit their loved ones using iPads. We actually just got a grant from the Wilson Foundation to expand that even more, so that'll be very good. And as you know, you've probably seen the advertising. Peter and his team have done a great job of advertising our ER virtual visits. Into culture. So we have begun celebrating a lot of our Nurses Week and other types of celebrations such as behavioral health virtually. So this is an example of pictures that we sent around of all of our staff. We also had two nurses that were recognized, Chantel Bell and Christy Lees, on Channel 2, and they just did a phenomenal job of articulating exactly not only what it means to work at ECMC, but what it means to be a nurse. We have tons of community support for our caregivers with food and PPE equipment. We've had an amazing amount, I think over 500 people visit, I think around 40,000 meals, right, Peter, that we've had. We had the flyover tribute for our caregivers, and we had folks on the roof. Andy was up there. Andy had to duck from the plane, but it almost hit him in the head. But he was successful in not getting hit. We also have Buffalo First Responders Salute to ECMC. The mayor came by with First Responders Honor, which was really a nice event. We're also doing a WebEx once a week with the host, Karen Zemansky, and Charlene Ludlow and Jim Turner, who give education, informational updates, and answer questions that are submitted by the staff here at ECMC. I'm doing weekly video messages, which we've been sending to you. Leadership Council meetings also virtually. Weekly physician update meetings, town halls, WebEx I mentioned earlier, but Karen's also doing another one with nurse executives. Behavioral health, Dr. Cummings is doing one. We also have one of our therapists doing stress reduction videos. So we're just, again, trying to keep connected with our staff. And I get a lot of great feedback as I'm coming in the morning or leaving from staff about how we've been trying to stay connected with them.
These are a very nice touch, Tom, your video messages, I have to say.
Thanks,
I
Mike.
enjoy them. I really do.
Thank you. And even when we had to deliver not so good news, I think the staff appreciated the directness, and I got lots of comments from them as I was walking in and out of the building. National Nurses Week, I told you we celebrated. Also EMS Week and Mental Health Month, we also celebrated. Karen's been trying to keep things fun, has done a virtual trivia contest with prizes for employees, which people have been participating in, and we have Pay It Forward days, Act of Kindness given to frontline team members. And again, these are initiatives. I got to give credit to Karen Zemansky and her team for making sure we keep connected with everybody. So obviously April statistics, lots of red. We're going to talk a little bit later about financially how this has hit us. This is very consistent with what others are seeing in the market. You'll see that our case mix index is up, which basically we've seen less patients but sicker patients. And we're hoping that this dynamic is going to change. We did see surge in volume this weekend, back to actually normal volume rate, levels in the ER and in the building. So it's a challenge because we have a lot of people out. We have about 150 people out due to COVID-related issues. But we're going to hopefully continue to see that volume increase. And that's without doing inpatient elective surgery yet. We're only doing outpatient elective surgery at this point.
Tom, what is our current census?
460. That's what we have in the building today,
Okay.
which is a lot more than we've had before. We've had in the high threes, Mike. So that's new as of this weekend. So,
Okay.
And we usually, we'll have somewhere between there and, we've been as high as over 500, but right now these are kind of normal volumes. And in the summer we see more like, closer to 5. So obviously we have our new trauma and emergency department opening up, coming up here, and I'm going to have Andy go through the list of all the things we have to do, and I'm going to actually have Karen chime in because she's been obviously coordinating clinically with all the staff as to getting things ready to rock and roll on June 2nd. And then after that, Peter's going to talk a little bit how we can't obviously have a huge ribbon cutting. So I apologize to the board for that because you all should be taking credit for this because of your leadership getting us to this point. But we're going to have to do that virtually and hopefully maybe this summer sometime have another celebration for the board members and the ECMC family. But Andy, why don't you take it from here and just tell me when to click and I'll go on to the next slide. So
I will do. Thank you, Tom. So I just wanted to just provide some updates around the new emergency room. First of all, I want to thank obviously our clinical team of leaders, Dr. Murray and Karen and Dr. Manka, Donna Odo, Jim Turner, and just a host of people who have really made this ER and the process go very smoothly. So we are a week away and opening up the new emergency room. Today, the DOH gave us the official or non-official, but thumbs up to continue to move forward. They were here on site, and so that went very well. The construction is complete, and cleaning and also delivery of TVs and IT and everything else is complete. Next slide, please. So also, we've had a group meeting for many, many months that have certainly done a lot of training and orientation into the unit, and Karen probably can speak more to that after I finish. Just to kind of give you highlights of what's going to happen on opening day next Tuesday. Our command center, which will be located inside of the new emergency room, will open up at 6 a.m. and be available till 9 p.m. At night. And so the new emergency room, if you go to the next slide, Tom, we will start seeing new patients in the emergency room on at 7 a.m. And as patients that are in the old ER, they will either be moved upstairs once if they're admitted to the hospital, or if they're discharged home, then they will exit from there. We expect that process will probably take anywhere from 4 to 6 hours. So I would say that early afternoon, the current ER will be the old ER, and everyone will be housed in the new space that we're very, very proud of. And I think with that, that's kind of the high level of what will happen in terms of next week. We do have, if you probably won't be here, but you may see on TV, you'll see some of our staff in different type of colors. We have one color of shirts for people who will help move things down. There are some small items that will need to be moved from the old ER to the ER as care is given. But I think the clinical team has worked very, very hard on our construction team to bring us to this point. We look forward to more stories of health and healing. And with that, I'll turn over to Karen for any comments that she'd like to make.
Oh, Karen, you're on mute.
It's a historic moment. Our employee education has been completed. A bevy of activity of every single department and executive leader, fine-tuning, testing, ensuring quality and accuracy for our big opening day. Both the providers and the frontline team are divided on whether they're going to be the last people in the old ER ever to provide care, or whether they're going to be the first people in the new ER. It's a big emotional roller coaster that everybody is on. It's a signature day for our hospital. It's very exciting.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, we obviously, folks are really, I saw Chantal and some other people that really, and Dr. Cloud, everybody's, this has been a long time coming. As Karen has said before, this is almost a decade in the making. I think it feels that way anyway. It's probably a little less than that, but we've been talking about this for a long time. So just congratulations to the whole team for the work they've been doing to get us to this point. We will be unveiling a little bit of what we're doing. So Peter, why don't you talk about the next part in maybe a couple minutes here.
Thanks, Tom. As Tom said earlier, we know that because of the pandemic, we're going to be doing things quite differently than we would have liked to have done and what we had imagined 2 years ago. So as you can see on the screen, we have a variety of activities connected to the opening of the new ED and trying to appropriately, under the circumstances, celebrate the monumental action that's going to take place. And so we were working on a 60-second TV spot that will launch on Thursday, hopefully. And we're just making some fine tuning to that right now. We'll follow with the ribbon cutting dedication on Saturday, which will be 10 a.m. on Saturday. And our plan there is, because of the continuing recommendations on social distancing, we'll have a limited amount of people participating, but we will have video of that happy event that we will be able to share more broadly. And we're inviting media to it so that they can help spread that information via their respective telecasts that day and through the weekend. And in fact, we notified press today, sent out a press advisory earlier today. We're also working on a 30-minute TV special. We're looking to buy time on one of the network affiliates, and we haven't determined which one yet. We're trying to get the best deal and at the best time. But it would run the Saturday after the ED opens, and sometime in the late morning, early afternoon would probably be the time slot. And we're just working on those details now, and we should have better information about that shortly. And then in addition to all that, we're going to reach out to, I should mention too on the opening too, by the way, because of the fact that we can't have all the people we would like to have for this type of an event, such as what we did for the groundbreaking, we've reached out to our supporting elected officials, some of whom were vitally important to the process, as many of you know. And for instance, we've asked, County Executive Polenkars, who was very supportive of us on the bond sale that was significant to this project, to supply a quote to our press release that we'll put out on Saturday, along with Senator Kennedy and Assembly Majority Leader Crystal Peoples-Stokes, also very supportive and important to the project, helped us secure the $10 million state grant for the ED. So we're trying to get them involved, just to at least have words of support from them in our press release that will go out on Saturday. So the congratulatory video that is the last time you see there then would include donors, elected officials, and even trauma survivors. We're reaching out to folks that many of you might have remembered that we used, that participated in the initial video that we ever created for the ED project almost 3 years ago now. And to get some messages from a wide variety of people, all connected to the project, to communicate to our ECMC family here just how happy they are for the successful completion of this project. So these are all things we're working on simultaneously, and they'll all be coming to fruition over the next week and a half.
Great. Thanks, Peter. Yeah, and the TV spot and the 30-minute spot, we're really trying to have have people have an opportunity to get inside the building since they can't obviously tour.
Right.
So, 30-minute special will really be an opportunity to kind of do a infomercial, if you will, on, what the ER is, what it looks like. And, part of this process too is really to, let people know it's safe to come here. Right. So as the the hotels have been doing, the airlines and people like that. So we're gonna add that component to it.
Yep.
A couple other things. The window replacement has restarted. So we have restarted that project, and we will begin to remove the ramp right in front of the new ER that has to come down next. Obviously, we have to stop seeing patients in the old ER first, and that'll be great because obviously that's the front entrance of the new ER. So. We have begun our expense reductions. I think I talked last meeting about layoffs that we have. We did have about 70 of the team members leave the institution and were laid off. We have started voluntary furloughs. We had 330 people sign up for voluntary furloughs. So Joe just gave me that number about 15 minutes before this meeting. So a lot more, frankly, than we expected. So that's anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks, and we're going to try to accommodate where we can. As you know, for folks that are about $75,000 or less, it actually can end up being more money for people. So because some of those dollars from the feds are not taxed. So we're going to move to mandatory layoffs, and we're trying to hit a number somewhere between 330 and 500, hopefully closer to 500. It's going to be challenging in that our business is picking up. So we're going to continue to work on that and do what we can. And it's just going to be a new reality for between now and the end of July to maybe some things that need to be done, get done a little slower. So more to come on that, but the staff, people have been phenomenal. The ECMC family has been phenomenal. In moving forward with trying to help here in expense side. And I want to thank the executive team, as I mentioned before. The executive team gave up, either comp or benefits or a combination thereof that were either contractual or otherwise. So I just wanted to thank the team for that. So with that, I'll stop here and ask if there's any questions before John goes into his finance report.
Tom, on the furlough, can you just talk a little bit about where some of those, by category or by job classification, where those are coming from for the most part?
Yeah. So first, I'll start off with the fact that we had to have agreements with the unions regarding the furloughs. This is not something that's mentioned in the union contracts. So we had agreement from NISNA from CSCA and AFSCME. NISNA chose not to participate in the voluntary furlough program. When we go to a mandatory furlough program, we also need to have agreement from our unions. If they decide not to do that, we will have to do a layoff, which frankly will not have as much benefit. But I mean, layoff that would be for a 2-week period. It wouldn't be obviously longer than that, or it could be for 4 for some people. But we're hoping that the unions will agree with us so that we can offer some things that we traditionally wouldn't be able to offer in a layoff situation. So with that, I don't know. We literally just got the 330 voluntary furlough forms this afternoon. So I don't know, Joe, if you have any sense of kind of where they're coming from or not. At this point, I'm assuming it's mostly administrative. But any comments you have regarding that, Joe?
No, as a matter of fact, we're going to take the next 7 or 8 hours to sort where they're coming through. The forms were due today, so HR is sorting all those. We're going to create a master spreadsheet. We'll have more information in the morning on that.
Yeah. Okay.
Joe, would you let the board know in the broadest of categories where that's coming from, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Nope, no problem.
Any other
Tom, this is Sharon. I just wanted to comment regarding the opening of the new ER. While it's true we will not experience the grandeur of the ribbon cutting that we have experienced in the past, the lack of the ribbon cutting will not diminish the importance of what that will do to the community and for the community. And I just wanted to extend my appreciation to all of you for the hard work that's gone into that.
Thank you, Sharon. I appreciate that. It is unfortunate we can't have the whole ECMC family there, but we will do it virtually. And many of you were there from the beginning of the funding fight, and Sharon was chair of the board during that time. It was interesting times, but we got through it. And I just want to thank the board for your continued support, because there were times when we went through that process where we didn't think it was going to happen. But we kept pushing and pushing and pushing and got the financing done, and obviously now to the construction. So just thank you to the board for all that.
Thanks, Tom. John?
Sure. So thank you and good evening. Tom, you can just, I think, jump to the next slide, if you wouldn't mind. So you heard Tom reference, and I know we passed by the operating statistics fairly quickly, but April was really the first month where we really did see that reflected a first full month of the COVID-19 impacts. And it really manifests itself on this slide here that you see. So the inpatient cases that we saw that were behind plan, the inpatient surgeries that we saw that were behind plan, about 61%, outpatient surgeries behind plan, about 81%. And then total outpatient visits, about 34%. You can really see here that the operating revenues and the loss of those revenues is really driving the results. That resulted in a $19.5 million operating loss for the month. Again, the revenues are driving that. As we look at operating expenses, typically when you'd see volume down that much, you'd see expenses down, relatively speaking, because of our preparedness efforts, because of the continued costs that we had to incur during the month to make sure we were ready to care for the community. We were only able to partially offset those expense reductions for supplies. So you do see some reduction here, but clearly not enough to offset the significant revenue loss. And on the next slide, you'll see that, and you may recall, going into the month of April, we did have an operating loss of about $16 million. So when added to April, that results in a year-to-date operating loss through April 30th of about $35.9 million or $36 million. We'll talk a little bit about the COVID impacts, which are really driving this in a bit more detail. But clearly you can see on this slide that, again, the loss of revenue is driving a significant component of the operating loss to date. Important to note, as we move into the next slide, it's okay, as we move into this next slide, that these dollars are as of April 30th. So we do expect those loss trends to continue into and through May. We did have a surge in volume this last weekend. And so while it might be mitigated to a small degree, we did have significant lost revenue throughout the month of May. So we'll continue to keep you updated. But as you look at this slide, what we've been trying to do is continually track, for a lot of different reasons, but track in a very detailed way all of our costs related to this pandemic. And so from March 15th through April 30th, you can see here that the lost revenue equates to about $24 million, with additional costs of about 5.2, resulting in about a $29 million impact only through April 30th. So the comment I just made related to the fact that it's continuing through May, this amount will continue to grow, as will our operating loss on top of what I had mentioned prior. And so as we move to the next slide, you can really see that we've been trying to mitigate those impacts that we've talked about and monitor our cash as we've gone along here. in part by investigating and tracking down as many opportunities as we can and have been able to or found ourselves eligible for, whether it was through federal relief or other activities that we've been able to undertake with regard to our local community. In order to manage this and really where we are today, as of April 30th, of course, is approximately 110 days cash on hand, and that's an all-in cash on hand number, so that does include or designated funds, but it also includes one of the opportunities that we did take advantage of that I know I mentioned last time we were together, and that was a 6-month payment advance from Medicare that was available to us, as well as small deferrals of payroll taxes. Both of those are included in our cash amount. It's about $38.2 million, both of which are essentially advance payments that will require a payback within the next. The Medicare advance, the large amount, is expected to be paid back under the current rules by year end. There is a proposal in the House of Representatives today that would delay that, but at this point in time, under the current regulations, that would be required to be paid back by the end of the year. That total amounts to about 21 days cash, so it's helped us in the short term, but obviously additional cash management initiatives are in process. Tom talked at length about several of the expense management initiatives that are underway, but we also have undertaken other initiatives with regard to our local insurers, our plan partners, some of whom have provided a stability payment for us. They also had been directed by the Department of Financial Services through New York State to work with the local hospitals on making sure the payments that they have in-house and the claims that they have in-house get liquidated and paid promptly. So those efforts are underway, as well as other advance payment opportunities in other areas of our business to try to make sure we're tracking down any and all opportunities for us to keep stable in terms of our cash flow. A bit of good news. So on the federal relief side, you've heard us talk about how it's not enough. We've received $11.4 million to date through the federal general distribution pool. A bit of good news is that we did receive on Friday a distribution of a little over $1 million that was part of the nationwide allocation to nursing homes. It was a standard formula that was distributed on Friday. Total amount was about $4.9 billion nationally. Our calculation resulted in about $1 million distribution. So all those components will help us. And then the last component that is not specifically mentioned here, but we are pursuing, as you would expect us to, is a claim through the FEMA process, and we have applied for and been approved for a project approval for public assistance through the FEMA program. So that kicks off the next phase, which is slowly starting to get all of the documentation in place for filing a claim. That will take place over the course of the next several months at least, because as we all know, the emergency declaration is still open at this point. So needless to say, we're investigating every opportunity that we have for federal relief as well as any cash relief. And we'll keep the board up to date as additional opportunities come about or as we get additional distributions.
So, John, I also just want to mention with regard to that federal funding, Congressman Higgins called me, and he actually spoke directly to the Deputy Director of HHS. Gillibrand's staff, senior staffer, called us, senior staffer of health called us to let us know that they're advocating, and also Crystal Peoples-Stokes had talked to Senator Schumer directly about ECMC and the funding. Now, I think, as I keep mentioning, we are one of 49 other states. But there's enough, I think, buzz out there between our articles. Actually, the deputy director of HHS knew about us directly. But there's a lot of articles out there about the fact that a lot of hospitals with a lot of money on their balance sheets receive funding, and a lot of safety net hospitals didn't. So we're going to hope that that clamor gets louder and louder, and these next rounds will actually see some relief. But there's enough out there, that's for sure. There's been, and I think there's a story on MSN, and it was one in the Wall Street Journal this morning regarding that. So
that's all I had, John.
John, excuse me, quick question. Does has any of the bonding cash flow for the ER been impacted by any of this at all?
No, it has not. It has not. If you recall, for the ER, it was done through a mixture of capital campaign dollars, bond dollars, as well as the latest infusion, which was the New York State grant that was received. And so we've had no interruption in the cash flow related to that project.
Great. And I'm assuming that one of the things that we'll be able to report when we open is that we were right on budget?
Yes, right on budget. I know the budget had changed over the course of the project, but yes, right on budget.
From the approved budget from June, I think of last year, right?
Right.
When we upped it.
Hey, John, it's Mike.
That's what budget you're talking about, Jack. The latest
John,
budget, yes.
Right.
If I may.
Go ahead, Mike.
I'm sorry, John. I'd like to compliment Tom and his executive team and John. It's a full-time job just looking out after dollars that are available to go get. And just for the few times and the meetings that we've had, every time you turn around, there's funding available, and we have to go after every piece of those dollars that are available. So I'd like to compliment Tom and the executive team and John on doing that, because I don't think they're letting anything go by that we shouldn't go after. Was there a dollar amount with the payroll FEMA money that we were eligible for? Did we look into that?
Mike, are you talking? I'm not sure which program you're talking about. Are you talking about the?
I'm talking about the $10 million is the max.
Oh, yes. So you're talking about the payroll protection program that was administered through the SBA?
Yes.
Yes. So we did apply for that program. It is somewhat restrictive towards small businesses. We felt there was an interpretation that we may be eligible. We did apply, but were denied based on eligibility rules that are basically the standard size rules governed by the SBA prohibited us from being eligible for that program.
Okay, so we were denied for it. Okay, got it. Okay, thank you.
I want to particularly thank Jim Turner. Even before we open next week, the fact that we're on budget and on schedule amidst all this craziness, while we still continue to do the lobby and the windows, I think is nothing short of just remarkable. So Jim, just a great job, and thank you. I'm not quite sure how you managed to get it all done, much less under budget, but that's just a tremendous effort.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay. Any other questions for John and or Tom on the numbers? We'll go right then to the standing committees, and I do not believe, unless Mike or Ron or Mike Badger have any other reports, is there anything that we need to address as a board coming from any of those committees, Mike or Ron Bennett?
No, they covered everything.
Is that here?
So we're good to go?
I'm good, John.
Okay, well, thank you. We have nothing to talk about in the executive session, so if there is no other business,
Can
I would
just interrupt and say one thing just in the
Sure.
I just wanted to let the board know this is a very positive story. Right at the outset of the pandemic, maybe around April 9th, my 91-year-old grandmother fell in her driveway and fractured very significantly her femur. No, am I saying that right? Her humerus, right? That would be nice. No, her arm, her humerus. But anyway, of course, the family freaked out. We were in the midst of a pandemic. She's old. She suffers from metastatic breast cancer that she opted not to treat. The fracture was at a point where there was already a tumor. And so there was a lot of discussion about whether or not to put a plate in, given her age and the condition of her bones. And I just wanted to say that via the amazing care provided by ECMC, she had a plate surgically installed, went to Terrace View for rehab, and is now home and living on her own in her second floor flat, and could not be happier. So I want to express not only my own personal and my family's thanks, but I just want that to be a testament to the true care that ECMC is all about, from literally soup to nuts, from the ambulance through the surgery to the rehab, and now she's home. So I just wanted to tell the board about that story and say a heartfelt thanks.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Jen.
Jen, I have to ask, did she fall on her property or someone else's?
Yeah, her own. Sorry.
I think she's well represented, Chris.
I send all my stuff to Chris. I wanted to say, demonstrate what even in the midst of this incredible crisis that was the pandemic, she received unbelievable care, just as a matter of course. So I wanted everyone on the board to hear that. Everybody on the staff already knows that, but I just wanted to make sure that everyone heard that. Thanks again.
Great stuff.
Thank you, Jen. That's great. And she's doing well?
Her name is Mary, and just to give you some indication, when the ambulance picked her up in her driveway with a cracked head and a broken wing, they said, "What's your name?" And she said, "It's Mary, and today it is not spelled Merry."
Great.
Yeah.
Well, God bless. That's great. So unless there is anything else that we need to talk about, we'll please look for all of Peter's efforts this coming week as we open up the ER. And I'd like to thank Chris O'Brien for being only slightly less formal than I have been on this call. And what does that say, Chris? Oh, my Wisconsin. Okay. Anyway.
Wisconsin.
Thank you all very much, and stay safe. And we'll be back in touch in the next week or so. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Have a good one.
Bye. Stay safe.